All right, riding into another brand new day. Glad to have you here. It's the Steve Gruber Show. We've got a lot to cover today from the Foxhole Freedom here in Studio G. Warning, the Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride and optimism and uncontrollable enthusiasm for America's future. Never more true than today. Kicking off the live broadcast and Real America's Voice and MTN networks and reaching a growing global audience, this is the Steve Gruber Show, a no-panic zone. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, Sandy Cortez. That's how the kids remember AOC from her suburban high school, which pretty much destroys her whole "I'm a tough kid from the Bronx" idea. Not true at all, in fact, but why are we learning now? Number two, the University of Pennsylvania has folded to President Trump, dumping men and women's sports and issuing an apology to the women that represent the Ivy League school. Oh, and getting rid of all of Leah Thomas's, or whatever his name was. All of the records, all of the wins gone. And number three, this is a big one. President Trump on a roll this week. In fact, he's been on a roll for a couple of weeks of great news cycles and leadership at home and abroad. We're halfway through the year, and he's still working tirelessly on making America great again. He's probably in the Oval Office as we speak, while visiting Florida's newest detention center Tuesday. A place dubbed Alligator Alcatres, the president answered a variety of questions on topics that many of us are very concerned about. In fact, he took questions from just about everyone in the press pool for a while. He does this all the time. You see, he has a big plan for securing our elections, he says, a move that would greatly increase the value of the American vote by redoing the census. This would be huge. Listen.
We want to bring our elections back. The election in 2020 was rigged, millions and millions of votes. It had to do with COVID and a lot of things, but it really had to do with the crooked people. The Democrats are very good at cheating on elections. And that's why I said too big to rig. They tried this one too. But after about 9:02, they gave up too many votes, too big to rig. Ron would love it. I would love it. Christie would love it. That's what they have to do. They have to bring it back. And we have to look, Ron, they include anybody that happens to be in your state.
Well, California would lose like 5 seats if they did a fair census. And even beyond that, the Biden census gypped Florida of at least 1 seat. We only got 1 seat in the last census. Are you trying to tell me that Florida only had 1 seat in that? We should have had at least 2. Texas should have had another one. That could be the difference in the House of Representatives and the majority. So I would love for them to redo the census for 26. My legislature will redistrict those lines. We'll get it to where it's fair. But as it's right now, this country is not fairly apportioned. I've got so many more millions of people in Florida that have representation because of that flawed census.
Oh, they're exactly right. Exactly right. Redoing the census before the midterms would be a major game changer. If it's legal or possible. I don't know if it's either. These Democrat-run cities and states that have prided themselves on their sanctuary status, and they stand to lose multiple seats if we redid the census and included questions about citizenship. This goes beyond non-citizens voting or not voting in our elections. You see, these blue states have been handed more representation than they deserve because they've filled their towns with illegal aliens. It's high time we rectify that huge mistake. I wrote a piece at stevegruber.com more than 12 years ago, ripping California because I believe California, Ron DeSantis said 5 seats. I believe it's 7 seats that California has in Congress they do not deserve because they're counting illegal aliens. It seems that everything comes back to immigration, to legal immigration, to securing our border. You see, Florida's a shining light for states on how they can do their part. Florida's opening up that detention center that I just said will be known as Alligator Alcatraz. It's a thing of beauty. I'll let President Trump give you some details. Listen to this.
And it's a great honor to be deep in Florida, the Florida Everglades, to open America's newest migrant detention center. It's incredibly built, and you're seeing that yourself. That's why I said, let the press join us on our walk so they can see what's happening. It's known as Alligator Alcatraz, which is very appropriate because I looked outside and that's not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon. But very soon, this facility will house some of the most menacing migrants, some of the most vicious people on the planet. We're surrounded by miles of treacherous swampland, and the only way out is really deportation. And a lot of these people are self-deporting back to their country where they came from. Quite a few were amazed at actually the number. We took the FEMA money that Joe Biden allocated to pay for the free luxury hotel rooms, where he's paying hundreds of millions of dollars in New York City, and we used it to build this project, and Narana was just a little fraction of that money, the money they spent on that.
Yeah. It seems that him and the president, Ron DeSantis, are buddies these days. Good to see, by the way. DeSantis, a very good governor, maybe the best in the country right now. And Trump, well, it's Donald Trump. Governor Ron DeSantis is taking his state security seriously, one of many reasons why the Sunshine State is booming in every aspect. He won't be sending violent illegal aliens back on the streets to harm Florida's legal residents, and he won't be setting them loose with a court date that's 3 years in the future either. He's got a brilliant plan for fast-tracking immigration hearings so that the beds at Alligator Alcatres can stay open. Listen to this.
This is we're offering up our National Guard and other folks in Florida to be deputized to be immigration judges. We're working with the Department of Justice for the approvals. I'm sure Pam will approve. But then I'll have a National Guard judge advocate here. Someone has a notice to appear. Biden would tell them to come back in 3 years and appear. Now you'll be able to appear in like a day or two, so they're not going to be detained, hopefully, for all that long. We'll have people here in this facility that can make, it's a bureaucracy. The president's got to deal with the bureaucracy. Now, that Supreme Court ruling was good because that's going to allow him to be able to exercise Article 2 the way founders intended, but you still have bureaucracy. So we want to cut through that so that we have an efficient operation between Florida and DHS to get the removal of these illegals done.
It's a genius idea. I hope more states follow suit. It makes a huge difference to have a president who supports and encourages these kinds of policies instead of one that does everything to throw the borders wide open. By the way, Alligator Alcatraz there is a converted airport. It was an airport to begin with, an airfield. You know what the beauty of that is? If you bring in illegals and you have a group that are going back to El Salvador or Venezuela or Haiti or wherever, just put them on the plane right there and send them out. You're in Florida. You're halfway there. Thanks for stopping in. Adios. Remember up-and-coming communist Zorhan Mandami? You know, Zorhan the moron. Yeah, the radical Democrat from Uganda who's running in New York's mayoral election. How could you forget? He's an open borders fanatic, too, who plans on fighting ICE every step of the way. But President Trump says not on his watch. He had something to say about that. Listen.
Mr. President, your beloved New York City may well be led by a communist soon, Zorhan Mandami, who in his nomination speech said he will defy ICE and will not allow ICE to arrest criminal aliens in New York City. Your message to communist Zorhan Mandami.
Well, then we'll have to arrest him. Look, we don't need a communist in this country, but if we have one, I'm going to be watching over him very carefully on behalf of the nation. We send him money. We send him all the things that he needs to run a government. We're going to be watching that very carefully, and a lot of people are saying he's here illegally. We're going to look at everything, and ideally, he's going to turn out to be much less than a communist. But right.
Yeah, communism, no place in America. More on that after the break, right here on the Steve Gruber Show. Yeah, the takeaway at the end of the last segment there. Communism really has no place in America. In fact, the Constitution guarantees a Republican form of government, which means communism could never legally be the American government system. Trump is exactly right. I trust that a strong message will be sent to Mandani if he tries to turn New York City into some communist hellhole, but it's already headed that way. The biggest development in Trump's agenda yesterday, though, was the one big beautiful bill, as you know. One big beautiful bill passing in the Senate with some modifications, close, 50-50 vote. J.D. Vance had to step in, break the tie. Now, like many of you, I've got mixed feelings because the reconciliation bill is a mixed bag. Some of it's oblivion. You know what oblivion is? It's 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound sack. But let's talk about some of the wins here. Some of the good stuff here first. It permanently extends the signature Trump-era 2017 tax cuts for working Americans. Good stuff. Something that could increase your family's take-home pay by as much as $10,000 a year, along with the promise of no taxes on tips, overtime, or Social Security made into reality. It ramps up spending on military, making room for the development of a missile defense system like the Golden Dome, as it's called, and significantly bolsters border security, which President Trump has argued is the most consequential budget item for all Americans. Here's what he said.
In total, the average illegal alien costs American taxpayers an estimated $70,000. That's each. $70,000. I think that number is even low. If you care about balancing the budget, the single most impactful step we can take is to fully reverse the Biden migration invasion. One of the worst invasions we've ever had. We've never had an invasion like this. We've had invasions, but we've taken care of them. We've never had an invasion like this, and it's with us. And we have some very bad people out there looking to do big harm. That's why the one big, beautiful bill includes funding for 3,000 new Border Patrol officers and 10,000 new ICE agents. And I've gotten to know the Border Patrol and ICE very well.
Yeah. Removing illegal aliens from our country changes everything. It creates space in our social services for Americans who actually need the help. It cools off the housing market, which could also use the help. It could make insurance less expensive. It gives law enforcement a breather. Trump's right about all of it. It's important. So how are we going to pay for it? The tax cuts, the military, the border, that's the big question, and the bill answers it in part. It tightens restrictions on Medicaid and SNAP benefits. If you're an able-bodied adult under the age of 65 and you don't have kids younger than 14 at home, you need to be working at least 80 hours a month to qualify for these benefits. Sounds reasonable. You need to give to society before you take from it. You see, we're not communist. An estimated 1.4 million illegal aliens alone will be removed from these benefits as a result of this bill. There's some confusion about this, but apparently they are going to go. And then there's the rollback on EV credits. It's an end to Joe Biden's poorly named Inflation Reduction Act and places additional taxes on products that are made in China. Another big win for conservatives, the bill defunds Planned Parenthood. You, the taxpayer, are no longer on the hook for abortions you might oppose in the first place. But here's where some of the conservatives take issue. At the end of the day, the Senate still voted to raise the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. An extra trillion from what the House voted for. Trillions of dollars. It's the one thing that got Elon Musk slamming the entire bill. Again, listen.
America is also going bankrupt extremely quickly. And nobody seems to, everyone seems to be sort of whistling past the graveyard on this one. You know, the Defense Department budget is a very big budget, okay? It's $1 trillion a year, DOD, Intel, it's $1 trillion. And interest payments on the national debt just exceeded the Defense Department budget. They're over $1 trillion a year, just in interest, and rising. We're adding $1 trillion to our debt, which our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay somehow.
Yeah, we're paying $1 trillion in debt servicing. Now, the rift between Trump and Musk is showing again. Elon promising to primary the Republicans who voted for this bill. Trump promising to send Doge after Elon and cut his subsidies. It's an ugly public fight. But I think the basic belief that the national debt is going to be our downfall if we don't do something about it is something that most of us can agree on. Either we get it right or we don't. Here's the critique from Rand Paul, who was one of three Republicans who said no to this bill. Here he is.
Maybe we have to judge the effects of the big, not-so-beautiful bill by looking at what happens to the debt next year. Supporters of the bill admit it adds $270 billion to the debt next year. That's the only thing we know for certain. We don't know what happens in year 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, but we know next year this bill will grow the deficit by $270 billion. In addition, the bill increases the debt ceiling by $5 trillion. What does that mean? That is an admission that they know they aren't controlling the deficit. They know that the ensuing years will add trillions more. So we're adding $2 trillion this year, but they're anticipating, the authors of the bill anticipating adding more than $2 trillion next year. That doesn't sound at all conservative to me, and that's why I'm a no.
Of course, the Trump administration takes issue with those numbers, claims that the calculations don't take into account all the economic growth that will be unleashed. Here's one of Trump's economic advisors. Listen.
That between all the president's policies, from the One Big Beautiful Bill, the deregulatory agenda, the energy abundance, they'll boost economic growth by about a percentage point. This brings in about $4 trillion more revenue. So whereas the Congressional Budget Office says this thing's going to cost $3.25 trillion, we say that's nonsense. You have to include the economic growth that's going to come as a result of the bill and the other policies from the president, and you add $4 trillion to that $3.25 trillion deficit, you get to plus $750 billion surplus. So there's lots of revenue that's coming in from economic growth and other sources that are going to bring the deficit down.
Okay.
All right, so what do you think? Does the bill deliver on the mandate you voted for, or is the national debt too big of an issue to overlook? It's America. You're entitled to your opinion. We'll take the wins where we can get them, like in the tax cuts and defunding Planned Parenthood, but I'll be eyeing the monster of our national debt with some concern. As long as it keeps growing, you should as well. We'll take a break and be back. Good morning. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Some high school game.
Well, lost in all the noise yesterday, the United States Department of Education announced that the University of Pennsylvania has agreed to a resolution with President Donald Trump's administration to keep men out of women's sports. None of this trans nonsense any further. Leah Thomas further will be stripped of all championships, medals, whatever. UPenn will restore female athletes in Division I swimming records, titles, and similar recognitions which were misappropriated by male athletes allowed to compete in female categories. Huge win. They'll issue a public statement to the university community stating that it will comply with Title IX. It's going to apologize, is this Ivy League school, to everyone that was wronged by Leah Thomas and its bad behavior. It's utterly stupid behavior. Good for the University of Pennsylvania. No. Screw them. Good for Donald Trump. Good for Riley Gaines. Good for Riley Gaines for doing the right thing and putting the pressure on, putting the thumb screws to him. Are you frustrated by the gridlock in Washington and wonder why Congress just can't seem to get its act together most days? There's a way to understand how we got here, what can be done. Hillsdale College, my good friends there, present a free online course, Congress, How It Worked, Why It Doesn't. Taught by Hillsdale's own Dr. Kevin Porteous, this course reveals the original purpose of Congress, and it's just one of the many magnificent courses you can find with my good friends at Hillsdale. You can see the video for those of you seeing it. These are incredibly well done videos. Don't binge watch Netflix. Don't binge watch Apple TV. Binge watch Hillsdale. You know why? Unlike those other two, Hillsdale is free. It's free. And you can get an education with some of the best production of anything you've seen. More than 40 different courses now from Hillsdale. You can learn all about it, about American history, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, C.S. Lewis, and Christianity in this country. Learn about all of it for free. Gruberforhillsdale.com. I do it. I was watching it yesterday. It's good stuff, man. Gruberforhillsdale.com. You're welcome. Give me some feedback on what you find out, by the way. Gruberforhillsdale.com. Please check it out. I'll be back in just a moment. All right, let's dive into this AI thing again. All right, look, I use AI every day, right? The AI has become my search engine. I don't use Google anymore. Mostly I use Grok, I'll be honest with you. Elon's platform, Grok is the AI that is on X. It seems to be more comprehensive. It seems to be more mainstream. It doesn't seem to have its information skewed too much one way or the other. And if it is skewed, or I feel that it is, I call out the program and say, wait a second, this is coming from an attitude that I don't like, and it will correct it. Well, AI was discussed in this big, beautiful bill, as you know, and we're going to have some impact from it. What is it? Well, Daniel Cochran's here, Senior Research Associate for the Center for Technology at Human Person at the Heritage Foundation out there on the cutting edge of conservatism every single day. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Good to see you. Good morning.
Good morning. All right, so let's talk about this. The Senate overwhelmingly rejected a moratorium on AI control and oversight, if you will. That's my understanding, but I need you, the expert here. Sort this out with me. Tell the folks what this moratorium means, what it means going forward, and is it a good thing or a bad thing?
Yeah, so what Congress proposed was essentially a 10-year moratorium on states' abilities to pass laws related to AI. And that's everything really from the kind of AI that you use, right, like Grok, to the use of AI to generate, as an example, child porn. 37 states have laws on the books that say you can't use AI for CSAM. They've updated their laws to specifically address the AI age. Now, what Congress, if the provision had passed, what it would have done is it said they couldn't really enforce that kind of law for the next 10 years. Now, because of how the Senate works and because of the Byrd rule, some of your listeners may be familiar, the Senate basically connected the requirement to funding for rural broadband. And the problem with this is that it would virtually guarantee that the big blue states like California, New York they could forfeit the BEAD funding, their rural broadband funding, while the small rural states that rely on that funding, they'd be on the hook for it. So it really, unfortunately, the way the proposal was written, while some proponents they stress the need to push back in California, which I agree with, but because of the way the proposal was written, it would have taxed red states, not California. And so for that reason, I think it was a real problem.
And what we're trying to get to here, Daniel, my estimation here, and I agree with this point, we're trying to give some guardrails. We don't want child porn being created. We don't want deep fakes being made of political candidates, making it look like a candidate has done or said something that's completely false. We don't want any of that. We want to be able to protect against that. But at the same time, we don't want to restrict our ability to explore, to learn, to go forward, to beat the Chinese, to be quite clear, and to be on the cutting edge of AI technology, because whoever wins the AI battle might win the battle for supremacy on this planet, potentially. That's the game, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I think beating China is paramount. But again, one of the goals of this bill was stop California, New York, right? Because California, New York, as you know, they're imposing a woke agenda on AI and everything else. But the way that the proposal was written, it was linked to funding for rural broadband. California receives about $2 billion in rural broadband funding from the federal government. And California's budget is $327 billion. So California could have just ignored the moratorium, while smaller red states that need that funding, that have much smaller budgets, think Missouri, even Utah, those states would have been on the hook. So while the small red states wouldn't be able to pass common sense guardrails because of this, California would basically continue to just do what they want. So the problem is, again, the proposal, in some ways it sounds good, but in reality it would have actually gone the other way, and that's why we were really concerned.
Right, but it was rejected 99-1. I don't know who the one was. You probably.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
Tom Tillis, actually. Yeah.
Well, of course, Tom Tillis. Why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
Tom Tillis on his way out the door. Don't let the door hit you, Tom. Let me ask you something about broadband, rural broadband, if I may. You mentioned it a couple of times here. Isn't that a colossal waste of money? And I know that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are in a public food fight over God only knows what this time. But the fact of the matter is, there are technologies out there that are far superior to rural broadband. Starlink comes to mind. It would be Elon pointed this out a long time ago. It'd be far cheaper to put Starlink up and provide internet service for all of these places at a fraction of the cost. Why wouldn't we do that?
So actually, under the Department of Commerce's revised guidance, they're actually trying to do something of that. So they're requiring states So states receive these funds, and then the states give the funds to third-party entities that provide the infrastructure. And so basically one of the new guidance is, look, you have to look at infrastructure that is the most cost effective, and it has to be in some sense tech neutral. That's actually really good guidance, and I think that going forward, if states comply with the commerce guidance, then we could see, for instance, Starlink potentially be used. So I think this is a good example of where the administration's getting it right. Again, great idea on the broadband. We just don't want to handcuff states from passing common sense guardrails on AI that we're relying on increasingly every day.
I agree with that. Yeah, you know, there's the broadband thing. I mean, it's just another example of government can't do things very well. We're talking about AI. We're talking about the cutting edge of technology. They can't build EV charging stations. They can't get internet service to small towns. That's why the government sometimes suspect. I think you're in the right place here. What should we do going forward with the AI, do you believe, Daniel, that would protect the consumers, protect the American way of life, and yet keep it wide open for innovation going forward so that we are on the forefront of technology here in America?
Certainly. Well, I think we need something of a national framework, right? So Congress needs to actually get its act together and pass legislation. We've been calling for that for years. And I think that that framework needs to be flexible and adaptable, and that it needs to make sure that there's reserve a role for states to serve as laboratories of democracy and regulating how this technology is deployed, again, within certain parameters. That's, I think, how we balance the need for guardrails with the need for innovation.
I agree with you on that. Daniel, greatly appreciate you being here. Obviously, AI will be in the headlines probably for the rest of my life, so we'll have plenty of time to talk about this and other potential regulations that get proposed, good and bad, and all things in between. Daniel Cochran, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Greatly appreciate it. All right, still to come, Peter McCullough will be here, talking about your health, talking about the COVID shots, talking about the parasites that are cruising around. It's a huge tick season, too. Did you know that Ivormectin has become the go-to for cattle feed and for wildlife? Yeah, it's true. That way, the parasites don't survive. That's right, they don't survive that way. How about this story right here? You'll like this. If you live in one of the northern states, the Well Connect geothermal system could save you up to 90% on your utilities. It's a hybrid geothermal system. If you have a well in your yard, if you live out in the country, you have a well in your yard, you're halfway to a hybrid geothermal system. It's a remarkable system, patented by a University of Michigan engineer years ago. Thousands of these are in use already. You keep your furnace, you keep your air conditioner. This is an add-on to the system. It takes about 1 day. If you're a handy person, you can do it yourself, or you can get your favorite HVAC person to do it. This will cut your utilities dramatically. You want free air conditioning for the rest of the summer? There it is. WellConnectGeo.com, WellConnectGeo.com. Find out more. Look at it. WellConnectGeo.com. All right, as many of you know, I was sick, I don't know, for 6 or 8 or 10 days here just recently. Pretty sure we had COVID, didn't go get tested, was not that concerned about it, but Ivy lost taste. So, that was one of the symptoms of COVID. I was sick for, 6 days, 7 days, whatever it was. She was as well, but didn't worry about getting tested. Certainly didn't consider going to get a vaccine, even though there's Razorblade Throat or whatever they're trying to scare us with now. Joining me, Dr. Peter McCullough, Chief Scientific Officer at the Wellness Company. Doctor, nice to see you here. No Razorblade Throat. Look, I've had a sore throat in my life. I've had terrible sore throats in my life. I'm not running off to get some vaccine. Is this the latest propaganda? What is this that we're hearing, sir? Good to see you.
Steve, where did this come from? Razorblade sore throat? Was this some CDC staffer trying to gin up interest in the most recent, COVID boosters in the fall? I mean, sure, sore throat can be part of a viral syndrome. The virus is always in the nose. The lymphatics drain back to the throat. So after about 5 to 7 days, there can be a sore throat. The way to prevent it was with daily nasal sprays and gargles, because get ahead of the virus. And of course, COVID-19, we are still seeing very rare cases now, but very responsive to ivermectin and the McCullough protocol.
Look, every day I feel like I see a new article, doctor, that talks about the negative impact of these COVID so-called vaccines. Every day, new revelations. People were injured. People died. There were problems. And you seem to understand, the more you read, that the companies behind it knew there were problems, and they shielded it or buried it or hid it altogether. It's frightening what they did, isn't it?
Steve, in our May 21st, 2025 U.S. Senate testimony, and actually produced a report. I just edited my section. It's clear both the pharmaceutical companies, largely Pfizer early on, then later Moderna, with the U.S. government, covered up serious side effects like heart damage or myocarditis. They should have gotten out ahead of this. I think the vaccine should have been pulled off the market very early or paused. Something is wrong, at least in some of the vials of the vaccine, that explain why people develop heart damage, blood clots, and other serious complications. 5 or 6 years into this, there is a long line of government and pharmaceutical officials and executives who are culpable for a large number of Americans who have been damaged. Sadly, some have died.
In your estimation, doctor, did the disease of COVID kill more people, or did the vaccine for COVID kill more people at the end of the day?
The analysis, this is shocking, but the vaccine caused more deaths than the illness. In 2023, the National Center for Health Statistics reported because a COVID death was someone who died during the pandemic but was test positive at any time. They didn't necessarily have to have the illness. The NCHS, they reported that half of the COVID deaths had no pneumonia in the chart, none. So they couldn't have died of COVID. So COVID deaths were grossly exaggerated. It's my estimation that if properly adjudicated, the real rate of COVID deaths would be about 10% of 1.2 million. So 120,000 COVID deaths. We are projecting now, based on a study out of Florida, as well as the VAERS system, we could be over 560,000 vaccine deaths.
Is there any reason? Can you come up with any scenario where a COVID vaccine would be appropriate today for anyone?
No.
No. It's that simple. It did so much damage, especially to young men and boys with that myocarditis, right? That was the big killer.
Steve, we still hear a push for vaccination of young people. Okay, so there are some parochial schools will still require it, and we don't hear about vaccination of our seniors in nursing homes. My mom is in a senior home. She says they haven't talked about them in years. Remember, it was the elderly that was at risk, not young people.
Yeah. Let me talk about this miracle drug and it really is a miracle drug, the antiparasitic ivermectin. And I talk about this because, as you heard me say off the top of the program here, that I believe I had COVID. I didn't go test, wasn't that worried about it. But you said a man of my size should take, I think you said 48 milligrams of ivermectin to combat the disease. And when I had COVID in the end of 2021, I took ivermectin. I went from being very sick to almost healthy in a period of about 8 or 10 hours. People say, well, that's not possible. It's my experience. It's what happened to me. Ivermectin works. It knocks it down, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I've used it now thousands of times. It's safer than Tylenol. We just had to find the right dose, Steve. Someone, I mean, at my size, would take 36 milligrams a day. My wife recently got sick on a trip. We weren't sure if it was COVID or not. She's smaller. Gave her 24 milligrams a day for 3 days. In addition to nasal sprays and gargles, everything else, McCullough protocol, boom, she's better.
There you go. And the other places that ivermectin does well is this Parasite Cleanse from the Wellness Company. I just went through it. Ivy and I did. Great product, great experience. A Parasite Cleanse, 60 million Americans have this. It's the hottest thing going from the Wellness Company, by the way, this Parasite Cleanse. And then I just read an article, and I looked it up because you said you hadn't heard this. Entomologytoday.org is the website, entomologytoday.org. Feeding deer corn with tick control drug shows promise to eliminate ticks. It's a big tick year across the country. You probably know this, Lyme disease and all this. If you feed the animals ivermectin in their feed, boom, it knocks the tick population down. Another miracle for ivermectin, the wonder drug, isn't it?
It is, and boy, I tell you what, if there's some control over Lyme disease, it's going to be a bad year this year in the Northeast. We need it. The strategies have all been based on the humans, not on the deer. Remember, the deer have it, and the ticks transmit it.
That's right. All right, if you want more information about Parasite Cleanse or any of the great things at the Wellness Company, twc.health/Gruber. You'll save 10%. Right now, the Parasite Cleanse, you'll save $60, free shipping too. Dr. McCullough, always appreciate you being here, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
And feed your deer ivermectin. They won't have ticks either. It's a miracle all the way around on the Steve Gruber Show. Here's a little bit of evidence, and I don't know what's going on. I got this thing in my throat I can't seem to get rid of today. Hairballs again today on the program. I'm apologizing up front. If you send me an email, I do my best to read them. All right, that's my promise to you, and I do my best. I pretty much read all the emails. I do my best to respond to them. Here's how I know. Here's an email I got just moments ago. Hi, Steve. I say an AI mark, like a trademark, should be required on all things created by AI. Writings, video, audio, drugs, GMOs, agriculture, laws, legal decisions, all of it. So if a video comes out and it's of whatever, should have a little watermark maybe on it. An AI mark, like a trademark. An AI watermark on the end product, whatever it is. I'm okay with some form of that. I'm okay with some form of that. I think that has merit. That comes to me from Andy. Schwartz Creek, Michigan. Andy, there you go. That's my answer. I think you're onto something there. An AI required mark on things created by AI. Books, movies, videos, whatever it might be. Inventions, there it is. Andy, you're onto something. You can send me an email by going to stevegruber.com. Read Liberty Page. And by the way, Satire Saturdays from Liberty Page. Oh, she's funny. Yeah, you think the Babylon Bee is good? Liberty Page Satire Saturdays might be better. Just telling you. stevegruber.com. Do yourself a favor. Check out stevegruber.com. Send me an email. And if you do, I'll read it. I'm not going to say I'm going to read it on the air, but Andy was on the money with his AI observation. Well done, Andy. We have the smartest viewers, the smartest listeners in all of broadcast right here because you get up early. You drink coffee with me every day, and I appreciate that. I do. Thank you for being here. In the next hour, we're going to speak to the National Council of Resistance of Iran, the NCRI. One of their folks is going to be here to talk about the aftermath of the hit on the nuclear fields and facilities of Iran. What does it mean going forward? Can the Iranian people break the chains and break free? It'd be nice, wouldn't it? I'll be back on the Steve Gruber Show. Nice to see you. right, putting the toe in the football for another big hour here in the Steve Gruber Show. Live from Studio G, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom every single day. A brand new hour. Warning, the Steve Gruber Show often results in extended periods of American pride, American optimism, and uncontrollable enthusiasm about America's future. Live in all 50 states and around the world. Let's do this. Here are three big things you need to know this hour. Number one, the farther we move from Joe Biden's failed presidency, the farther many want to be from getting blamed for it all. Now another DNC insider naming names on the puppet masters. Number two, tax cuts, work requirements, and even asylum fees are some of the items you can find in the version of the big, beautiful bill sent back to the House for consideration. Will it pass by the 4th of July? I don't think so, but maybe. And number three, yeah, the big talk is about the big, beautiful bill or the big butchered bill, BBB, right? Honestly, I don't know what I think about it all. But at least I take it seriously, unlike politicians in Washington, many of them. Another communist stooge, Jamie Raskin, you know him, of course, says he never looked at the idea of no tax on tips, never even looked at it. He didn't think it was serious, he claims. No tax on tips for middle-class Americans. He didn't think it was serious, not even worth looking at, says Jamie Raskin, who says he's fighting for you. Here he is.
No taxes on tips, which is part of this bill, for working people who work on a tipped wage. Do you support that?
You know, I haven't looked seriously at it because I haven't thought they were serious about it.
He didn't think that we were serious about helping the middle class. He didn't think that conservatives and Trump voters were serious about helping the middle class. Single moms that are waitresses. Single guys that are trying to wait tables to put food on the table for their kids. Married men and women in the service industry. He didn't think we were serious about helping the middle class. What a joke. Scott Jennings hammered the lies about who's getting cut from health care during his conversations on CNN. Scott Jennings brings me joy. He does. He's an American treasure. I believe truly. Here he is.
I have to say, Scott, him saying I'm not going to vote for Medicaid cuts and then he voted for this bill, which very clearly does cut Medicaid.
Yeah, but who does it cut Medicaid for? Illegal aliens? People who won't get off grandma's couch despite being able-bodied adults?
Right, but hang on.
It is a protection of the Social Security
I actually know too much about this because I used to be a healthcare policy reporter on Capitol Hill. Okay, so putting that hat on for a second, the people that are really going to suffer, and the reason this is a problem for Lisa Murkowski and Josh Hawley, are the rural hospitals with emergency rooms into which people like that may walk. Mm-hmm. And if they don't have Medicaid, they're not getting any, that hospital is not getting any money from that person or from the federal government.
Well, the Senate included a massive fund for rural hospitals. I think, was it $50 billion, or do they wind up, I forget where they wound up, but a massive fund to cover just what you're talking about. So some care was put into thinking about how do you protect rural hospitals from downside outcomes. So I think that's one of the reasons they're ultimately going to get it over the line, is because they actually work to fix little individual pieces that had people upset about it.
The problem with rural hospitals, I think it's cute, by the way, that woman from Chicken Noodle News says, I'm a real expert. I covered hospitals, while I was on Capitol Hill. I did a full documentary a year and a half ago, specifically on rural hospitals. You can look it up. Flatline movie. Flatline film, that's what it is. Flatlinefilm.com. Look that up, flatlinefilm.com. And I can tell you the biggest problem with rural hospitals, and by the way, there are 600 in financial trouble today, has nothing to do with this bill, has nothing to do with what Republicans are doing. It has everything to do with the overreach of government over the last many years, primarily. You see, because while liberal government, required rural hospitals and smaller hospitals to provide care, no matter who came in to provide care, legal, illegal, doesn't matter. You have to treat them if they come through the door. And while they're requiring by law that these hospitals do this, they kept reducing the amount of payment every time somebody walked through the door. For example, in Ducktown, Tennessee, yeah, that's a place, Ducktown, Tennessee, little hospital there, went out of business here about 5 years ago. You want to know why? It went out of business 5 years ago. Here's why. The reimbursement rate for somebody walking into the emergency room was $15. $15. The former president of that hospital appeared in the documentary with me. He said, for $15, I couldn't pay a nurse for 15 minutes. But here comes a patient with no insurance, no coverage, no backing. The government says, I have to take care of these people. And he said, I'm okay with that. But we can't afford it. That hospital went bankrupt. There are 200 hospitals in America today, mostly rural hospitals, that could go bankrupt today, and nobody would be surprised. Yeah, a whole bunch of hospitals that could go bankrupt today, and nobody would be surprised. By the way, John Fetterman was a no vote, but he was really upset that he missed a vacation for doing his job. No kidding, listen.
Did you get any clues on the floor about what time this might wrap?
Oh my God! I just want to go home. I've missed our entire trip to the beach. My family's going to be back before we on that. So, and again, I'm going to vote no. There's no drama. The votes are going to go. In fact, the only interesting votes are going to be on the margin, whether that's Collins or Johnson and those. But all the Democrats, we all know how that's going to go. And I don't think it's really helpful to put people here till when some ungodly hour. And again,
Thank you, sir.
Oh, gosh. Golly, you had to work late? Something else that politicians don't understand about working men and women in this country. Working late, working overtime, busting your ass to make the bills, to make sure that the lights stay on, that the kids have something to eat. Remarkable. John, well, we missed a vacation. No kidding, John. You have no idea how that breaks my heart. I mean, we are all just torn up over that. You know, the self-centeredness of some of these folks. The self-centeredness is absolutely jaw-dropping. This part of the program brought to you by Block Trust IRA. While the elites got rich off crypto, hardworking Americans like you were left behind, but not anymore. Block Trust IRA is changing that, bringing the crypto opportunity to real Americans just like you. With crypto fueling President Trump's America First economic miracle, now is your chance to join the movement. Their Animus AI trading platform runs 24/7, crushing old school strategies and helping patriots like you build serious wealth just like the elites. Named the #1 crypto tech platform by Bitcoin Magazine, Block Trust IRA offers up to $200 million in protection, and their clients are seeing returns sometimes 250%. You could be a teacher, a truck driver, you could be retired, a small business owner, doesn't matter. You can get up to $2,500 in bonus crypto when you sign up right now. What do you need to do? Go to SteveGruberCrypto.com. SteveGruberCrypto.com. Making retirement great again. Don't be left behind. When we come back, we're going to talk about Iran, the aftermath of that hit. It's coming up on The Steve Gruber Show. What did those American attacks on the Iranian nuclear facilities really mean? What is the state of the country of Iran right now? What are the people thinking? By all estimates, the regime in Tehran is at its weakest point since 1979, when the Islamic Revolution took over. And those American hostages were held, 52 of them, for 444 days. Well, there are people from Iran that live in exile that watch this every day. One of those folks, Ali Safavi, an Iran expert, an official with the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Paris-based National Council of Resistance of Iran, NCRI. Ali, greatly appreciate you being here today.
Well, it's actually my pleasure and glad to be with you.
All right, so let's sort this out. Obviously, you have contacts in Iran, people you speak with, even though you live in exile, and so do a lot of your compatriots. But what is the situation inside the country? What is happening post U.S. strikes on the Iranian nuclear facilities? What can you tell us? What can you share?
Definitely. First of all, obviously I have contacts with my family members and friends, but more than that, our movement, and particularly its main component, the Mujahideen Khalq, the NC, called MEK by its acronym in the US, as a major nationwide network within Iran, who have been particularly active since 2017, and they are basically every day are engaging in acts of resistance against the Iranian regime. Just last night, these resistance units attacked one of the IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard bases in Tehran. And these kind of activities are continuing. In fact, even when the war was going on, the resistance units were active. In the past year alone, they have carried out 3,077 operations against the IRGC and its paramilitary shock troopers called the Basij. So naturally, the situation within Iran is very volatile. The people, of course, are very angry. They reject this regime in its entirety, given its terrible economic policies, the massive unemployment, inflation, rampant corruption, 25 million Iranians living under the poverty line, 15 million sleeping hungry every night, massive and consistent power outages, water shortages, you name it. And so really, from our point of view and from the feedback we are getting from the network, the nationwide network within Iran, you can describe Iran as being a powder keg.
So you've been involved in Iranian politics for a long time. You're part of what is referred to as the Iranian Parliament in Exile. You watch this with great interest because you and the people around you can foresee a situation where you and your group of individuals would be in power in Tehran and not the Ayatollah, correct?
Well, that's an excellent question. Actually, Steve, our movement, in particular the NCRI, has been fighting against the Mullah's regime since 1981. In the course of this struggle, we have lost 100,000 activists, including my own brother, who was 29 years old when executed in 1981. But our fight really is not about assuming power. As our president-elect, Mrs. Maryam Rajavi, said before, 100,000 Iranians who assembled in Paris during our annual summit a couple of years ago. We are not fighting for power. We're not even fighting for a share of power. We are fighting to restore sovereignty to its rightful owners, who are the Iranian people. That said,
how does that happen? Fair question, Ali. How does that happen? How do the Iranian people that are completely unarmed, at bay from those that are in power, the Iranian Guard and so forth, how do they rise up? How do they take control? How is there a revolt when they have, I don't think they have any tools, do they?
Well, actually, in the past 7 years, actually 8 years, since 2017, there have been 5 major uprisings against this regime, the latest of which was in 2022, which, of course, the mullahs brutally suppressed. This is where the resistance units come in. They basically are acting as the sledgehammer that will break down the wall of repression and, of course, mobilize, organize, and encourage Iranians to join the ranks of the resistance. Ultimately, I think this regime will be overthrown with a organized uprising within Iran. And of course, in the course of that uprising, you have to counteract and neutralize the IRGC, which, as you correctly said, is the main instrument of repression. This is precisely why in our struggle, we are not asking the West to provide money. We're not asking the West to provide troops on the ground. We're not asking the West for weapons. What we are asking for, and this is something that Mrs. Rajavi said during a congressional hearing back in February, is for the US and of course for Europe to acknowledge and recognize the right of the Iranian people to topple this regime and restore democracy, a republican form of government.
Ali, real quickly. Real quickly, and literally 15 seconds. Was the U.S. strikes on the nuclear facilities of Iran the right thing to do in your estimation?
Well, to be honest, I cannot specifically say whether this was right or wrong, but there's no question that we are where we are because of the regime's 21 years, 22 years of intransigence vis-a-vis nuclear weapons program.
Fair point.
And willingness to abide by its international obligations.
Well, I agree with that. Ali Safavi, greatly appreciate you being here. We talk to your folks at NCRI pretty regularly. I thank you for the update. We'll check back in soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Really appreciate it. There it is, a perspective from the Iranians not living in Iran who are trying to exact change in their country. Difficult thing to do, especially with that regime in Tehran. We'll be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. All right, something totally different for just a moment, just to entertain me, and why not? Fast food. We all eat it sometimes. I try to eat a lot less of it than I ever used to. I think it's more of a young person thing, although I see older folks there. What is the #1 fast food restaurant in America for satisfaction? According to the American Customer Satisfaction Index, ASCI. What's #1?
Taco Bell.
Sorry, it's not Taco Bell. They don't even make the top tier. I'm sorry.
In the whole country?
In the whole country.
Is it a universal one?
It's 3,000 locations.
Like across the whole U.S.?
Come on. Which one do you like the best? There you go. There's the winner. Chick-fil-A. She got it right. My daughter passing through and answering the survey. Chick-fil-A got 83 out of 100. Anthony, do you agree with that?
I had Chick-fil-A one time in my life, and it gave me food poisoning.
Oh, well, that's nice. There's an unendorsement for Chick-fil-A from Anthony behind the screen.
Hate Chick-fil-A.
You got one time. It's really good. Anyhow, all right, so let's see if
I've
you
had
like
it a couple of times, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, I think it's good. I've been there a few times. Second place tie between Panda Express, which I've never eaten, and Starbucks, which really doesn't have much food, but they came in second. And in rounding out the top grouping, Arby's, Panera, Papa John's, and Pizza Hut. Dead last? Who's dead last? Anybody? Who's dead last? Yeah. McDonald's, thank you for your answers. McDonald's,
Wow.
dead last for customer satisfaction. A score of 70. They're barely above a D. So I got to tell you the story. So it wasn't that long ago. We went through a drive-through, Ivy and myself and my son, right? He ordered a couple of cheeseburgers. We didn't want anything. He was hungry. He's eating the cheeseburgers. He's like, there's no meat on the cheeseburgers. They were literally cheeseburgers with no meat. They were cheese sandwiches from McDonald's drive-through. That happened. True story. What's number one for regular fast restaurants, not fast food? I use Olive Garden as an example. They're not the winner. Any takers?
Chili's.
Texas Roadhouse.
I was going to say Texas Roadhouse.
You got it. Brock is the man. Texas Roadhouse, number one. Barely edging out Longhorn Steakhouse, which I don't think I've ever been to a Longhorn. I've been to Texas Roadhouse. They're always consistent. They're always good. Not often, but every now and then, a couple times a year, maybe. Maybe. There you have it. The Gruber satisfaction rating right here, 101 out of 100. That's right. I'll be right back. All right, back to it now with a troublemaker. Yeah, a guy who stirs up trouble because he has this crazy idea he should be out there defending the United States Constitution. Oh, the nerve of these people. David Kallman, senior partner with the Kallman Legal Group. in Michigan joins me now. David, you troublemaker. Here you are, stirring it up again. You just can't help yourself, can you?
I can't, Steve. I just live to cause trouble. What can I say?
All right. So here we are. The opt-out case, the Mahmoud case from the Supreme Court. A lot of big decisions at the end of last week, as you know, and big decisions that impact us out here in the hinterlands, places that are usually forgotten except in election years. But the Mahmoud case, just refresh people's memories and explain what this opt-out means, because it's a big deal when it comes to parental rights.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It was a great decision, 6-3 by the U.S. Supreme Court, Mahmoud v. Taylor. And what it did was, it was a Maryland case involving a number of families had their kids in public schools. There's an opt-out provision in Maryland law. Most states have some kind of opt-out provision for sex education and things like that that parents object to. So they had requested the right to have their children opt out of various books. A lot of them were LGBT things that were encouraging children to accept that lifestyle and to act accordingly. And so they were objecting to that, wanted their kids opted out. The school initially agreed, let them opt out. But then you know what happened, Steve? Too many people started opting their kids out. And so there were too many kids being opted out, and they thought it was disruptive. So they stopped it. They said, nope, no one can opt out anymore. And so that's what they did. And the parents sued, went up to the U.S. Supreme Court, and based on their First Amendment free exercise of religion rights, the case a long time ago, about over 50 years ago now, the Amish case, Wisconsin v. Yoder, the court breathed new life into that case and said that parents have the right to direct the upbringing, care, and education of their kids.
Man, does that upend the idea of the left of, it takes a village, and it does take a village. Look, when you and I grew up, if we got out of line uptown and your parents or my parents saw you or they saw me doing, they'd slap us upside the head. What would your mom think? Bam. I mean, there's a lot of truth to that, but it does not mean the government gets to come in and tell us how to raise children or to pretend that the government is somehow the parent and the parents are irrelevant. That's what this gets rid of, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the other excuses that the school district gave, besides the fact that too many people were opting their kids out, were, well, we're only teaching this as literature. It's not really promoting anything. We're just teaching it as literature sort of thing. And the court, Justice Alito, just slapped that. That's ridiculous.
So pornography is now literature? I've never considered pornography to be literature, but go ahead.
I know. It's silly. But then the third reason was they said, oh, we're just trying to be inclusive. We want everybody to be included. But of course, they do that at the expense of all of the kids. They ostracize all of the other kids and the parents and families who oppose this. So the reasoning was just not there,
all right.
And the justices saw it.
So let me ask you this. How does this, you and I both live in Michigan, right? You're, the Coleman Legal Group is here. The Great Lakes Justice Center that you also do work for is here. Right. What does this mean for places like Michigan that were fairly aggressive in pushing similar policies? Can there be an opt-out form here or in any state now, and that's the law of the land?
Absolutely, Steve. And we have prepared an opt-out form that's Michigan-specific right now, but we will have up within a day or so a nationwide opt-out form. It'll be posted on our website, colemanlegal.com, and you can go and get this opt-out form. It's a one-page thing. You can fill it out, put your children's names, take it to your school district, make sure somebody signs at the school district. There's a spot for the school to sign, acknowledging they received it. Then they have to opt out. So Michigan has a very similar law, and many states have these opt-out laws. And this is now affirming the right of parents to do this. And frankly, thousands of parents should be doing this if you have kids in the public schools. If you're a grandparent and you know your grandkids are in the public school, maybe your kids or the parents don't know. Let them know that this is available and that they have this right, and they can have this opt-out form submitted to the state, and we can go from there.
You can find that again at colemanlegal.com. That's Kallman legal, colemanlegal.com. You can find opt-out forms for Michigan today. For the rest of the country, before the 4th of July is what I'm hearing here, David. So it'll be available before the end of the week. That's good news. All right, so that's a big win.
Yes.
What else is on your radar? I know you're always out there looking for trouble. It's who you are, David. You can't avoid it. I get it. What else is going on that's important to the listeners and viewers today?
Well, we have a number of other cases going on. A case down in Texas, but we're hoping things will be resolved soon. We will let you know and keep you informed, and the listeners and viewers here of what's happening. But that'll be a big case. Also, that frankly, one of the biggest decisions the court made last week was the one slapping down the right of district judges to just willy-nilly issue nationwide injunctions against whatever the case is in front of them, against the government. And so you could have one local trial district judge in Maryland or Washington, D.C., issue an injunction that stopped things nationwide. That's ridiculous. And the Supreme Court struck that down. That was the CASA decision last week.
And yet I saw one hit the headlines today. Federal judge blocks Trump's immigration policy on Haitian protections of temporary protected status for 520,000 Haitians. Did it again. I don't think these things stand anymore. I think the Supreme Court could take that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I honestly don't understand it, Steve. I mean, this case just came out last week, and here's a district judge ignoring the U.S. Supreme Court. Yeah. I have a feeling there will be an emergency appeal to whatever district they're in the federal court system, and that's going to get slapped down very quickly.
That'll be gone. By the way, one last thing about those decisions and the case you just cited about it's about birthright citizenship. That wasn't decided. We'll see where that ends up. Probably not going to be a win for the president, but we'll see. But Ketanji Brown Jackson was absolutely slapped down by Amy Coney Barrett in a way that I've never read, never seen. She got ripped. Basically, your arguments are so stupid, we're not even going to address them. And that was signed by 6 of the justices. They are over her. They're tired of her already. Other people saying it was written like a middle school social media post.
Right.
That's what they called it.
It was astounding, Steve. I can tell you, over 40 years of practice in this area, and I've read thousands of decisions at this point. And, I think I'm as familiar as most attorneys that practice in this field around the country. I've never seen anything like it. To have another justice say to Justice Jackson Brown, you're in favor of knocking down the imperial presidency, the imperial executive, all at the same time you're saying, let's have an imperial judiciary. Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. And it's kind of the talk of the legal community right now.
Yeah,
there's obviously big rifts within the U.S. Supreme Court right now, no question.
Well, you need some collegiality in there because, the next case that comes along, you might want to try to lure some folks across it. That's over. She doesn't have any allies. I'm not even sure the 2 liberal justices are her allies at this point. We'll keep an eye on it. David Coleman, greatly appreciated. Again, it's ColemanLegal.com. ColemanLegal.com to get your opt-out forms anywhere in America in the next couple of days so your kids don't have to be subjected to things you don't agree with. David Coleman, thank you for all the good work.
Thanks, Steve. It's always fun to celebrate wins in the no panic zone.
You got it. Thank you, David. Thank you very much. All right. We'll take a break and be right back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. All right, as we dive back into it now, looking at the midterm elections, we're really not that far away now, right? You've got a number of senators not seeking re-election, a number of members of Congress also deciding to take their leave and step down. The latest being Don Bacon, I believe, announced his plan to retire Monday. He is from Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District, a very difficult district to win, by the way. It's a blue district that he represents. He's in a complicated position, so he's taking his leave. Debbie With Now is the president and CEO of iVoterGuide, here to talk about this. What's it all mean? Debbie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so far, there are a lot of senators, Democrats from New Hampshire, Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, all stepping down, which is leaving New Hampshire and Michigan as potential pickups for the Republicans. It's a possibility. New Hampshire for sure. Georgia's also a challenge for the Democrats, as their incumbent there is weak by any measure. So could be another good map for the Republicans. They have 53 seats now. I would not be surprised to see them with 56 come January of 27. But what are you seeing?
I see basically what you're seeing. These open seats are creating an opportunity for the Republicans to pick them up. I see John Ossoff in Georgia, which is a red state, and he's not, as you said, not a strong Democratic candidate. So that's an opportunity for the Republicans to pick up. I see Tom Tillis, who just is going to not run for re-election in North Carolina. North Carolina is an interesting state. It's got the Democratic statewide races, but Trump carried it. So it's very much a purple state. It's a swing state. And now with Tillis stepping out of the race, it's going to be a challenge to see who's going to step into that Republican seat. It will be a very interesting state to watch, to see who runs, to see who possibly President Trump puts his endorsement behind. There's rumors that Laura Trump is considering the race. We've got Michael Whatley is the former state chair that now runs the GOP. There's several state senators or congressmen from that state that are looking at a run. So we'll really be watching what goes on in North Carolina. It will be an interesting primary season in many of these states with open primaries, and those can prove brutal. But if you love politics, pop some popcorn. It will be interesting to watch. There's a lot at play, and I think the odds are that the Republicans will not only keep the majority, but strengthen it.
I believe that's true. And I'm going to disagree with you a little bit here, Debbie. I don't really think that North Carolina is a swing state anymore. I think North Carolina is going the way of Iowa, Ohio, Florida. All used to be swing states. None of those are swing states anymore. I think North Carolina is, well, they were only twice in the last 15 presidential elections has North Carolina chosen a Democrat. Jimmy Carter and Obama's first term. Other than that, they're all red 13 out of 15 times, from what I understand. So North Carolina, I believe, will be pretty safe. Georgia, on the other hand, dangerous for Democrats, as are New Hampshire and Michigan, like I said. Kentucky will stay red. Mitch McConnell retiring, thank God. But it will stay red. Yeah, thank God. But having said that, I do give Mitch McConnell credit for the fact that the United States Supreme Court is the way it is, because without his stewardship, you would not have those justices on the Supreme Court that delivered all those big decisions at the end of last week, for example. Now, going to the House, as I mentioned, Don Bacon. He represents Omaha. That's Nebraska's 2nd Congressional District. It's a blue district, yet he's been able to win there, and he's been very much not a MAGA person per se, so the MAGA people yell about him all the time. But what is he to do? It's a very difficult. I don't know that a Republican can win there besides him. He's retiring. I think it becomes a blue district. It's a good chance. But the number of people leaving the House, very small compared to previous years. We've got 14 so far that are stepping down. 2020 was the fewest retirements at 41. We're well below that right now. This could be a remarkably consistent House, right?
It could be. There's not very many toss-up seats even in the House. There's only 43 seats that are potentially contested. So there's a good chance that it will stay. Even those are in the Republican side, even though there's a slim margin. There's, people aren't stepping down. The Don Bacon seat is one of the few that is moving, has the opportunity for a pickup because of the way the districts are drawn, and they're not stepping down.
Well, having said that, though, Debbie, Some of these states are moving to redraw their districts in wake of Supreme Court decisions. They feel that they have more leeway, which, by the way, would favor Republicans. And in addition to that, what Donald Trump said yesterday when he was with Ron DeSantis, saying, look, the census was garbage. And the census was garbage. I called it at the time. Florida should have had at least one more seat, maybe two. Same for Texas. And you
California
have,
fewer, yeah.
In California, fewer. That's exactly right. And so you end up with a situation where, 3 or 4 seats going to the red team would be the difference potentially of a wider majority. So if those cases go forward, first redistricting, which would give the Republicans 2 or 3 seats, that'd be big. If you redid the census and California lost 5 seats and they were put in places like Montana, Texas, Florida, Utah, these states that are growing that are red, well then, that'd be a game changer, wouldn't it?
It's a huge, it would be huge. So we'll be watching that very closely to see what happens, because it's a great opportunity to get more Republicans into Congress, to give us a more secure majority to work on the agenda that the American people voted for in the last presidential election. And we pray will continue through this congressional and Senate election in the mid-year. When we watch what happens, the people who turn out to vote make a huge difference. And those of us who care about America and care about these values need to make sure that we vote, and we vote wisely, knowing what those candidates stand for. So, as we watch who runs and who files, make sure that you know what they've done, not just what they say they're going to do, and check out iVoter Guide before you vote.
Yeah, there you go. We'll see what happens. Greatly appreciate you being here, Debbie. I do appreciate. I don't know if you can actually redo the census. They're looking at it. We'll see what happens. I don't know if that's legal or not. I doubt it, but look, the census
need to
was
fix
garbage.
it next time.
I mean,
Yes,
how does New York hang on to a seat by 800 people? Really? I said that at the time. It was garbage then. It's garbage now. Debbie, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
All right, so right after the break, we'll have Brock with sports. You don't want to miss that. It'll be very well sporting. All right, let's check in now with that good friend of ours, Brock Palmbush, and sports.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. A handful of stunners at Wimbledon yesterday. French Open women's champ Coco Gauff and last year's U.S. Open women's finalist Jessica Pegula were upset in the first round. On the men's side, third-seeded Alexander Zverev was knocked out in round one. Round two begins today at the All England Club. In the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks waived injured guard Damian Lillard and signed forward Miles Turner away from the Eastern Conference champion Indiana Pacers on a 4-year deal worth $107 million. And the Detroit Pistons sent forward Simone Fontecchio to the Miami Heat for guard Duncan Robinson. Robinson then agreed to a 3-year deal worth $48 million with Detroit. In the WNBA, the Indiana Fever won the Commissioner's Cup by taking down the Minnesota Lynx on the road 74-59. The Fever did it without Caitlin Clark, who's out with a groin injury. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, thank you for that. On the Florida beaches and around the Gulf Coast as well, they keep having packages come bouncing up on the shore. They sure do. Packages of cocaine. Nothing says, hey, let's party, like a couple of kilos, right? It happened again. A Florida beachgoer finds 25 black packages in Walton County. Had Yosemite Sam on them. Guns a-blazing. Yeah, true story. Yosemite Sam, a whopping $500,000 worth of cocaine. Just last week, we talked about $1.5 million worth of cocaine. It was 110 pounds then. Here is the warning from Florida officials. While enjoying our beautiful beaches, if you come across any square groupers, please call us immediately and do not touch suspicious packages. The contents could be extremely harmful. We're here if you need us. We're here if you need us. There you go. Excellent. Greatly appreciate the support. Let's see, in the next hour, what do we have? Well, we're going to talk to Ron Rademacher, of course. It's that time of the week. We'll take a little bit of a mental vacation and just have some fun with Ron and a lot more straight ahead. All right, let's rip the top off another brand new hour, shall we? I'm glad you're here to do it with me. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Common sense, the foxhole of freedom, no panic zone. It's all here for you every single day. Tell your friends, gather around the campfire. We got things to talk about. Here are three big things to discuss this hour. Number one, a class dismissed. Siena Heights, a university in Michigan, calling it quits, closing its doors. It is a trend in America. Universities going out of business. Gosh, who could have figured? Number two, the Supreme Court is going to review a move by the Attorney General in Michigan to attack a pipeline. Yeah, an energy pipeline. And number three, while we're on it here in Michigan, how about this? Pete Buttigieg, who claims to be from Michigan. He's not, of course. He moved here with his husband and their two adopted children. Make of that what you will. Apparently, on top of polling, as far as a new Emerson College poll as to who would the front runner be for the Democrats today, I think Pete Buttigieg is the perfect candidate. He's accomplished nothing. He's done nothing. He was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. And other than that, transportation secretary when Ohio burned and bridges collapsed, he did little. The former frontrunner from Michigan was the governor here, Gretchen Whitmer. She's back to the pack now. Go figure. So according to the Emerson poll, Buttigieg, who has a home in Traverse City, is polling at 16%, which puts him ahead of Kamala Harris at 13%, and Gavin Newsom at 12%. I think bring Kamala back. I'm all for Kamala Harris. She's my favorite. Of course, Buttigieg, look, these people have done nothing. He's not a governor. He's not a senator. He's not anything. Gretchen Whitmer polling at 3%, which puts her in a tie with Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. For someone who's been floated as a rising Democrat star, Whitmer doesn't appear to have any big Gretch momentum, more like big ditch momentum. She's in the ditch, baby. Bernie Sanders gets 5% by comparison. He'd be 91 years old by the time he got to 2033 if he were to be elected. 91. We keep going older and older and dumber and dumber. Just bizarre. The leading candidate among Democrats in the poll, undecided. 23%, by the way. So how about, let's see. Who's leading on the Republican side? I'll bet you can guess this one. I'll bet you can figure this one out. That's right, J.D. Vance. The senator, current vice president, dominating the GOP field, 46%. Marco Rubio, whose stock continues to rise. Marco Rubio has proven to be an effective, outspoken Secretary of State. He's blunt. He's to the point. He is fun to watch on Sunday morning television as he fillets these talking heads with common sense and real answers. The gotcha questions seem to go nowhere as he guts them like a fish. Ron DeSantis, 9 points. So he's improved from where he was. Ron DeSantis, look, the whole conversation between Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis yesterday at Alligator Alcatres shows you that relationship has been repaired. Ron DeSantis rising again. Look, he's a good governor. And I say that, well, look, I've got Gretchen Whitmer. So by comparison, there is no comparison. Right? And so, anyhow, Ron DeSantis at 9. Even Bobby Kennedy, 5% as a Republican. The survey identified top current issues: the economy, number 1, threats to democracy, 22, immigration still up there at number 3. But with Buttigieg leading the pack with just 16% and Whitmer barely registering, Michigan's role in the 2028 presidential election seems more symbolic than significant at this point. I think that's fair to say. More symbolic than significant. You know what is significant? Leah Thomas losing all of his medals and all of his accolades and all of his victories being erased. Because Leah Thomas is a dude. He competed as a transgender woman. Leah Thomas is a dude. And remember when he finished in the same time as Riley Gaines, and they gave him the medal and said no to her. They gave the tiebreak to him for no apparent reason. Well, he's gone now. As the University of Pennsylvania says, we're going to follow the rules put forth by the Trump administration. We're going to recognize Title IX as they should. Good grief, people. This was not a hard lift. Women play women, men play men. Never the two shall meet, not in real competition. Elementary school is one thing, maybe even into middle school, but not in high school and college. Good grief, people. This is not a hard thing to figure out. By the way, Riley Gaines weighed in yesterday after having heard the announcement that the University of Pennsylvania would ban men from women's sports, apologize to all the women impacted, and get rid of all Leah Thomas's alleged victories, which they were not, of course. It's cheating. It's stolen valor. It's whatever you want to call it. Riley Gaines had this to say.
Institutions have brought upon themselves has not been and cannot be undone, but the first step in recapturing the rights of women is for wrongdoers to admit that they're wrong, and that's what the University of Pennsylvania is doing today by acknowledging on behalf of its faculty, on behalf of its administrators, on behalf of its students, and on behalf of its alumni, that what the University of Pennsylvania did was not just shameful, not just wrong, it was illegal. It violated well-established federal law, of course that federal law being Title IX, which is very, very clear, by the way. Prevents any sort of sex-based discrimination within any educational program that receives federal funds. This admission by the University of Pennsylvania begins the process of protecting future generations against these heinous wrongs.
Yeah, these heinous wrongs. She's so spot on. Good for Riley Gaines. Good for the people that stood up for what was right. She's been on this program a number of times. It's been a while. Should get her back now. I should get her back and talk to her about this huge victory. Take care of your home's title because scammers can steal it when you don't even know it. The FBI calls it house stealing. They fill out some forms, they file it with the county. Next thing you know, your home isn't yours, but you don't even know it until those dunning notices come in the mailbox saying you owe money. And you're like, for what? Because they took money out, took loans out against the equity in your home. Maybe they even sold the home behind your back. It happens. If you're like me, you say, that doesn't really happen. I never worry about my home's title. You should. That's why I trust Home Title Lock and their $1 million triple lock protection. Keeps your home and equity safe. You get 24/7 monitoring of your property, urgent alerts if there are any changes. If fraud should occur, they'll spend $1 million to fix the fraud and restore your title, no additional cost. The best part, you can get a free title history report right now because they have partnered with me. It's $250 value. Just go to HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. HomeTitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. You'll have peace of mind tonight. I'll be right back. Are you tired of being... Let's get back to it now here with Ron Rademacher, everybody. He's traveled more back roads than anybody you know, getting lost and confused and left for dead overnight, all those things. Usually he'd be lured out by free beer and burgers. That's right, Ron Rademacher's here, everybody. Free beer and burgers, Ron. It is 4th of July, after all.
It is 4th of July, and I don't even care if they're free. If there's burgers and beer, I'm going to track it down, baby.
Burgers and beer, I'm here. You got it. What's up?
That's it. Hey, listen, we got a couple of listener shout-outs from our the world tour over in St. Clair. It was terrific. We had perfect weather, right on the river, the great big Lakers going by. And Gary from Rapid River, of all places, stopped by to tell me to tell you, good job, Steve.
Why, thank you, Gary.
In case you don't remember, Rapid River is only 15 miles west of Nama. So I don't know how he found his way to Rapid River. He was there. And then a young lady stopped by, Haley from St. Clair, wanted to say hello to her. I hope she calls in. This woman has the best radio voice I think I've ever heard, except, of course, for yours.
Well, I appreciate that.
So I told her
really?
for you.
So she was she had the voice of a storyteller.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Oh, just amazing. And then some other news. The Ludington State Park has reopened, and they've reopened early. Blew everybody's mind. $2 million worth of improvements. Howard, just remember, if you're traveling up there for Independence Day, we'll be going to Houghton Lake. But if you're going to Ludington, there is a lot of construction on US 31, especially to the area where the electric forest is usually held. So plan ahead.
The electric forest, yeah, where they smoke the electric lettuce. Right. Go on.
Electric lettuce. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. So we're going to be posting a couple of 3-day getaway previews as promised over on Michigan News Source. Copper Harbor, that's Michigan's northernmost town. They have a fantastic 4th of July up there with the lights over the harbor. And way down south, Port Huron, where we just were, if you've never taken the ride on the Huron Lady 2, that's a great ride to go from Port Huron down to St. Clair, where you can sit and watch the fireworks. And even the Canadians can sit and watch the Independence Day fireworks. They're right across the river. Got that going on. And Steve, one thing I don't want to miss out on, if you're in the Upper Peninsula, in Gladstone for 4th of July, they're having the log rolling U.S. championships this weekend.
So they have championships for log rolling.
This is the 9th annual U.S. Log Rolling Championships, and it is hilarious. These big guys, they drink a little beer, I think. They get up on these big floating logs, and, they're standing there spinning them, and they're going, and they'll snub, and they'll dip, and they're going to dunk you in there. I got some pictures of Bob the Turtle competing in Ontonagon a couple of years ago. He did not win.
I'm surprised.
But, it's a great show.
I'm surprised I've not seen log rolling on ESPN yet. And I say that in some seriousness because, look, the people in Vegas will bet on any damn thing. Anything. If they had 2 guys on a log, best 3 out of 5, they're laying money on that thing. Right. So.
Well, it might be ESPN is not putting it up there for the same reason that Disney doesn't, because it is separated by chromosomes, the competitions. There's XX and there's a Y. So it is. There's some controversy about how the categories are set up.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, we got to get that in there.
Yeah, of course. Got to have controversy.
Down south again. Yeah, always got that gender controversy it's a long problem in log rolling, as you know. I mean, lumberjacks have been fighting this for many, many, many generations. Hey, listen, if you're going to be down the south part of the state, over by Metamora, Hadley's having their old-fashioned days. And this is, if you want old-fashioned, 4th of July, it doesn't get any more American and old-fashioned than this. They got a 1927 Essex Super 6 on display, and the mill will be open, the museum will be open. The big event is the gathering at the Ice Cream Parlor. So it doesn't get any more Michigan than that for 4th of July.
I'd like an old-fashioned.
Spring Festival continues, and in Boyne City, the strolls continue on Friday. You can't beat that. That is so cool up there.
It is, I'm going to say this about Boyne City. I was at the 4th of July there First time I was there probably 10 or 12 years ago, right? And it's like 1955. It is the old school 4th of July parade. People turn out. There's only 2,000 or 3,000 people live in Boyne City, maybe 3,000, whatever. You have 3-4 times that amount on the 4th of July parade, if it's good. I mean, they'll just pack that town. It's an old-fashioned 4th of July parade. I give a shout-out to my friends there, not too far from the Northern Compound in Boyne City. They do a hell of a nice job. They do a nice job during summer, but they do a nice job for 4th of July. Maybe it might be my favorite 4th of July anywhere in America. It might be Boyne City, USA.
It is great right there on Lake Charlevoix. And don't forget, that is where I believe it's called the Boyne River Grill.
That's right.
Located.
Wow, those burgers are awesome.
There is a top tier burger at the Boyne River Grill. I mean, we can't wait to get back to have that.
Yeah, those burgers and the turkey, the chicken sandwiches are as big as your head. So you got that going.
Oh, I mean, unbelievable.
Yeah, unbelievable. All right, Cherry Festival also continuing in Traverse City, right? That's still going on.
Yep, that's still going on.
And
there are rumors of beer at Houghton Lake at the Arts and Crafts Fair.
Is that where you'll be?
I will find out. I'm going to find out if those rumors are true.
Attaboy.
We don't need.
And is the beer warm or cold? Ron Rademacher there is a beer tester. He's an official beer tester at Houghton Lake at the Arts and Craft Fair. All right, MichiganBackroads.com, MichiganBackroads.com, MichiganBackroads.com. Have a happy and safe 4th of July. Do not blow your fingers off, kids. That's what I have to say about it. Not too much free beer.
Celebrate Independence Day. Have a good one. Be safe out there.
Thank you, Ron Rademacher. Everybody, there he goes. He's on his way. Ron, thank you very much. And he's gone. A break, and I'll be back on the Steve Gruber Show. By the way, I had to look up that 1927 Essex Super 6 Speedabout. It's a pretty rare car. Pretty cool. It's got like a tail like a boat. It does. Apparently they're pretty quick for the year they were built, but it's got like a boat tail on it. Pretty cool car. The Essex Motor Car Company existed from 1918 to 1933. By 1933, it was owned by Hudson, I believe. They also are gone, but pretty cool car that Ron was talking about there. That'll be at Hadley, the Hadley Mill Museum. 4th of July, 8 until 3. The Essex Super 6 Speedabout is on loan from Stahl's Museum. What a really cool car. It really is. It's got, and the one that I see in the pictures here is this ridiculous neon green. It's perfect. It's the way it should be. Anyhow, the Speedabout, available for viewing, and see if you like it. Really pretty quick car. It has wooden spokes, though. Isn't that crazy? Wooden spokes on a 1927 car. You would think by then that they had gone to steel, but they had not. Look, I just work here. Fun stuff. Let's see here. There's something I was going to tell you about, and I had it sitting here, and then it just goes away. Oh, yeah. Donald Trump wins again. Did I mention that? Donald Trump wins again. $30+ million from CBS. A couple of weeks ago, he turned down $15 million because of that deceitfully edited 60 Minutes package. Well, now he settled for $16 million up front, which, by the way, will pay for legal fees, the cost of the case, contributions to his future presidential library, or charitable causes, or whatever he determines. It's at his discretion. There you have it. $30 million or more. Plus, new rules. Every presidential candidate that appears on 60 Minutes, the entire transcript must be published for the public to see. It's the Trump rule. This part of the program brought to you by my good friends at Wolverine Water, Michigan's purest water. Michigan-made water systems for 75 years. Michigan-made, Michigan people. WolverineWaterSystems.com. You want the best water of your life? WolverineWaterSystems.com. Tell my good friend Paul Mahaney I sent you on over anywhere in the state. WolverineWaterSystems.com. Back after this. All right, shifting gears, heading back into it now. It's a busy day as we head to this 4th of July holiday celebration, of course. Joining me now is Michigan State Representative Tom Coons. He represents Clare, Michigan. Lovely place, by the way. And look, he's trying to finalize a road funding deal because, you know what? The roads, well, frankly, they suck. Sorry, Tom, but I'm still not pleased because they didn't fix the damn roads. And the road that I use most near my house, pretty much will chew up your car and spit it out. That's after it's already knocked all the fillings out of your head and given you whiplash. But other than that, the road's fine. Anyhow, how are you?
Right. I'm doing well. You know, it wasn't too bad of a night yesterday. We didn't get a lot accomplished. That was unfortunate. But here we are back at it.
Yeah. So where are we with this? Tell me about the funding plan. Can you get there? And I thought, you know, I'm confused because I thought Whitmer borrowed billions of dollars for the roads. Did she not? Don't we? I mean, Michigan has, where are we in Michigan? I think we're at $85 billion of state debt and growing daily. I don't hear people tell me about that too often, so I have to tell people and remind them that we're broke as a state. We're flat broke. What are we doing about that, and how are we going to fix the roads? How's it all coming together, Tom?
You know, really brief history lesson. When Gretchen Whitmer gets elected, she didn't run on this, surprisingly, but then she gets elected. She says, I want to institute a 45-cent gas tax. Could you imagine paying 45 cents a gallon more and what that would do to our economy? Well, of course, the legislature said, no, we're not going to do that. So since this was her signature, she ran on this, she went out and borrowed money, and the governor can do that. She bonded a bunch of roads. By law, that can only go to the main roads. So those have to be our M roads, you know, M55 and M, you know, 127. So none of the city, nothing from the driveway to the freeway has been touched in 8 years. The state is just not funding them. So that's why you talk about the local road that you use every day, and that's why it's so bad, is you don't get any money. So we were frustrated about this. We introduced bills last November. It wasn't even this year. It's, you know, last November. Here's our plan. And Steve, sometimes there's the negotiating, well, I don't want to go first. I don't want to go first. I want to respond to what you have to say. Nope, I got to tip my hat. Matt Hall took the lead on this, and he said, we're going to put our plan out there. And he did. He laid out a $3.1 billion plan that doesn't raise taxes. And this is just great. Last November. Well, then, of course, we rolled it out. You know, we didn't take, after the election, we didn't take office until January. And then we enrolled the plans. Here it is. We gave you the bills. These bills are sitting in the Senate. What's really frustrating for me is nothing. They don't respond. They haven't come back with, well, we don't like this part of your plan. Let's do this instead. There's just, it's radio silence. So not only is the Senate, they don't like our plan. I think they don't like it because it's our plan. They don't have a plan. And that's where I get frustrated. You know, don't tell me what you won't do. Tell me what you will do. Help me solve the road funding. And there's just absolutely nothing. So,
so again, here's the question, Tom. I mean, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, we're still paying off road funding from the Engler administration. I think we still have that debt on our books. Some of it's been paid off, but not all of it. Those roads turned to dust 15 or 20 years ago. Those roads are gone. Why can't we find better road building processes? Why can't we find private companies that can come in and do the job cheaper? Oh, and give a guarantee on the work. Wouldn't that be nice? A guarantee on the work from private companies so that the roads last longer, come in at a lower price for you and I, and we can get something in return for the taxpayers. Is there something wrong with that plan?
Absolutely not. I love it. Let's bond a road for 20 years. You know, if Gruber Construction gets this road, you're going to build it, but you're going to be responsible for 20 years. So now you're going to sit at the table. And I love the idea. Unfortunately, the efficiency of government gets in the way of that. We haven't, you know, MDOT doesn't have any responsibility.
First of all, Tom, we don't use the word efficiency and government in the same sentence ever. That's rule. That's
okay, well, I like it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, but again, this is where it's just frustrating. The fact that there's nothing. They haven't. It was, I believe it was Einstein that said, anybody can make something complicated. It takes true genius to make it simple. Well,
that's correct.
You know, an elephant is a mouse designed by the government. So what I feel like the Senate Democrats are trying to do is they're trying to make this more complicated. Hey, let's do everything together. I want to do K-12 and road funding and DHHS and all these things. And now we have this monolithic thing that we just can't, where do you even start?
Yeah,
well, then it comes back, wait a minute. Let's do K-12. Let's do road funding. And the governor, this is what's amazing. The governor is supporting the House Republicans. Hey, that's a great idea. Thank you for the road plan. So she's out, you know, over her skis a little bit, trying to push the Senate Democrats to do something. So
getting nothing.
We'll see.
Yeah.
getting nothing. Right.
I'm going to voice my disapproval again at $12,000 per student. I think it's an absurd amount of money. I think spending $85 billion to run the state of Michigan is an absurd amount of money when we were doing it for $55 billion just 6 years ago.
Right. Right.
I mean, the state of Pennsylvania runs for $35 billion less than we do. Just magical, apparently, in Philadelphia and in Pittsburgh. It's just pure magic over there because we can't seem to do it for all the money we have, and we still don't have roads, and our kids aren't getting educated. And places like Flint are getting $30,000 a kid. And so we're going to raise the amount of money we're spending on students because we've done such a wonderful job so far. Right?
I look at Georgia.
I think that's crazy.
No. You're exactly right. That is exactly right. To quote Uncle Ted, this is insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
It's insane.
I look at Georgia. Yeah, right. Roughly the same population, roughly the same size, half the state government, literally half. So, and they're beating us in every category. I mean, I can't defend it. I wish I could stand up here and say, Steve, we're doing a great job with X, Y, and Z. Well, I can't. Right. You'd never have me back on the show again. So.
Next.
Yeah.
Right.
So we'll see. The discussions are ongoing. I'm hoping. Listen, let's have a conversation. So we'll see. Welcome to divided government.
So what happens next year? Does it get better? It's going to be magically better.
Well, yeah, magic. The magic happens in Lansing. We're gonna see. Our next session day is July 15th. So let's go home for the 4th. Everybody take a deep breath. And again, I don't want to disparage anybody, but you got to get serious with me. If you want to solve, well, okay. What I'm saying, if you want to solve the problem, then sit down and have a serious conversation. Again, what is your road funding plan, Senate Democrats? Tell me what you want to do, and let's start from there. And we can't even get. They don't have a plan, and that just, I didn't expect them to have one in January. Come on, it's July. Let's go.
They're ignoring you. Yeah.
That's exactly what they're doing.
They're ignoring you. But that's a plan, I guess. Tom, thank you for being here.
The ostrich. Hey, have a great 4th of July.
You too, my friend.
God
Watch
bless
those
America.
potholes.
Here we go.
God bless America. Tom, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We spend too much money. The roads are not fixed. The kids are not getting educated. And the idea is to raise, not from Tom, but from others, raise taxes, spend more. Come on, stop it. Show me what you've done with the money you got already before you ask for more. I'll be right back. All right, we got a cleanup on aisle 3 here. A cleanup of a lot of things here in aisle 3, 4, 5, whatever. Let's start with this. Let's get you together, shall we? What if we get you together? For my good friends at My Pure Health, a special offer, all right? I just saw some pictures of two folks at My Pure Health. They both lost weight, and now they're in competitive, I think it's swimming. Remarkable. Man and a woman are both competing now, having lost weight and feeling good about themselves. So now through July the 15th, for the next 2 weeks, listeners of this program, Gruber listeners, get 25% off a 20 or 40-day customized weight loss plan from My Pure Health Solutions. If you've thought about it and you've wondered, you've seen the pictures here. You've heard Missy come on and talk about the people that got off chemotherapy and lost weight. I did it in 2018. Man, it worked for me. All right, so find out what your metabolism is doing, how it's broken, and how My Pure Health Solutions turns it back on for good. They uncover the real reasons your body holds on to fat, like hormones, inflammation, and more. No exercise needed, just real food, real results, and a custom plan just for you. Weekly one-on-one coaching to keep you on track. And now with breakthrough tech to reactivate your stem cells, too, if you haven't heard. My Pure Health. Get started today at GruberHealth.com. Summer ready from anywhere in America. GruberHealth.com. Real results, real food, real simple. Oh, and by the way, when you do this, you're not on pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life. You're not spending $500 or $1,000 a month on pharmaceuticals, right? Which go on forever. Do it the right way. Learn about the frequencies in your body. You'll be glad you did. GruberHealth.com. GruberHealth.com. All right, so tax cuts, work requirements, asylum fees. Here is what we know about the Senate version of Trump's big, beautiful bill. It would save Americans from a 22% tax hike, according to the Republicans. That's for starters. Republican leaders and the White House pitching the legislation as a means to turbocharge the economy, root out waste, fraud, and abuse, a slew of federal programs to make crucial investments. We'll see how that all plays out, right? Tax cuts. First of all, the tax cuts you get out of this deal. So it passed the Senate. Now it's back to the House. It's not clear the House will support any of this because the Senate gutted a lot of it. They did not rein in the parliamentarian. They let her run wild over the bill. But a House GOP memo from earlier this year said it would avoid a 22% tax hike for American families at the end of this year. It includes tax cuts specifically tailored to the middle and working class, like allowing people to deduct taxes on $25,000 of tipped wages. That deduction would begin to phase out for people making $150,000 a year or $300,000 as a married couple. The Senate bill would also allow people to deduct up to $12,500 in overtime pay under the same income guidelines. Both the tipped and overtime wage deductions would be available through 2028. So no tax on tips up to $25,000. No tax on overtime up to $12,500. So that is a big, I mean, that's nice. It's a big plus, right? The SALT taxes. This is a big sticking point for a lot of the folks. The current SALT deduction cap would be raised to $40,000 from $10,000 where it stands now. This is a tax benefit for those living in places like New York, LA, and everywhere else. The problem is you and I subsidize that. State and local taxes, that's what it stands for. State and local taxes. If you pay an excessive amount of state and local taxes, you get a deduction. Raised to $40,000, that's a big no to me. Absolutely no. If you live in New York or LA and you pay too much in taxes, fix it there. Don't send me the check, or don't send me the bill in Michigan. Blue state Republicans fought for the increase, arguing it's an existential issue for many lawmakers. However, Republicans from red states say SALT deductions are a giveaway for high tax states and a reward for progressive, lousy socialist policies. Medicaid cuts have proven to be the biggest point of pain for Republicans. Cuts to the widely used healthcare program account for roughly $1 trillion, according to recent analysis from the Congressional Budget Office. We don't necessarily trust them. The CBO found that under the Senate GOP's plan, nearly 12 million Americans could lose their health insurance. Well, the fact of the matter is it's people that should be working, that are sitting on the couch, many of them, and some of them are illegals. Stricter work requirements have been the crown jewel for the GOP. The bill would require able-bodied, childless adults between 18 and 64 to work at least 80 hours a month to maintain their benefits, or by participating in community service, going to school, or engaging in a work program. However, there are more divisive changes, like tweaks to the Medicaid provider tax rate. The rate change would go year by year, lower the provider tax in Medicaid expansion states from 6% to 3.5%. The plan was tweaked to comport with Senate rules and starts in fiscal year 2028. All right, so the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, food stamps, also would require some working age adults between 18 and 64, and for parents with kids over 7. The bill would shift some of the cost burden of the program from the federal government to the states, which is where it should be anyway. Currently, the federal government covers the cost of SNAP, but states with high payment error rates would cover a greater share of the benefit costs. If the error rate is 6% or higher, states would be subjected to a sliding scale that could see their share of allotments rise to a range of 5 to 15%. How about the debt limit, raised by $5 trillion? That's insane. So now we're just going to automatically go to $42 trillion in debt. And by the way, once we get there, they'll raise it again. What's the point of having a debt limit if it doesn't create any less spending? And it just goes on and on. I've got more. I'm not sure I like the bill. The more I read about it, there's some things I like. There's a lot of things I do not. We'll have some final thoughts here on this Wednesday after this. Oh, one last thing that I didn't finish on. The Supreme Court is going to take up the Dana Nessel case against Enbridge. That's an important consideration. Remember, we have a treaty from 1977. Dana Enbridge, the state of Michigan, do not have the power to shut down Line 5. And why they would want to is beyond me. There's never been a leak. There's never been a problem. And Enbridge is now building a tunnel to take care of any concerns that anyone might have. Right there it is. Nessel filed a lawsuit back in 2019 against Line 5. Michigan Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals said the case belonged in the state court. This case should never have left state court in the first place, and after this long delay caused by Enbridge's procedural manipulations, we're elated to welcome Nessel v. Enbridge back to its rightful judicial venue, said Nessel. The state has an obligation and imperative to protect the Great Lakes from the threat of pollution, especially the devastating catastrophe of a potential, not an actual, but, might something bad happen at some point. Enbridge said its Line 5 pipeline is necessary to provide reliable and affordable energy in Michigan. It delivers light oil, natural gas liquids that heat homes and businesses, fuel vehicles, power industry, said Enbridge. More than half of the propane used in Michigan comes from Line 5. 300,000 families rely on propane for home heating. The Supreme Court will now determine whether the case should be heard in the state or federal courts. And really, does it matter? I don't know, because there's still a treaty with Canada from 1977 that says you can't shut down such things. You can't shut down Line 5. You can't shut down the tunnel that comes after Line 5. You can't do any of these things. Here we are, because the do-gooders just can't get out of their own way. All right. Greatly appreciate you being here as we head towards the 4th of July. Fight the good fight, keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber, and this is The Steve Gruber Show.